There is no way that if you asked me to write down every possible version of success that I could think of when I was 18, that I would have written editor-in-chief of Entreprenuer magazine. There's no way I would have written that. It wouldn't have ever occurred to me. I hadn't even heard of the magazine. So if I had focused on whatever the hell my goal was at 18, I would have missed out on what I'm doing right now. So instead, the goal should just be something that gets you moving. And then it's okay to revise it along the way. Just start moving.
So the question is this: how do thought leaders, school dropouts, former and current students find out what's next after they do or don't cross that stage? If you want to know the secrets to starting the career or business of your dreams, getting paid whatever you desire, and discovering what you do the best with the least amount of effort, then this is the right podcast for you. I'm Shawn Anthony, and this is School's Over. Now What? The podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to School's Over Now with the podcast, and I'm your host, Shawn Anthony. If this is your first time checking out the show, man, I'm just going ahead and let you know this show has exploded and has inspired so many current and former students. Find out, okay, what's that next step? And they've asked themselves the question anybody has asked themselves, and that is, school's over, now what? And I'm just excited to announce that this platform has reached the top 100 in business podcasts. Also, this particular platform as well has been mentioned and featured by many celebs and also many business insiders. So if this is your first time clicking the show, let me go ahead and tell you how we kick this off. Each and every single week, we started off with the review of the week. And the review of the week this week comes from Kelly Hall Worships, and she titled it Education Art. I'm a first time listener of the podcast. Came because I admire Brittany and B Carter Solutions and must say that I'm a subscriber now. I love that the mission is to help others grow continuously. This podcast was fire. So many gems and tips. My favorite line was, take the ego out. So many of us need this reminder when it comes to working with people. Kelly Hall, I appreciate you. In that episode with, Brittany Carter McKenna, if you haven't heard it, it's on fire. It's one of people's favorite episodes. It constantly jumps up to the top of the chart. So shout out to Brittany. She always is killing it. And if you've been inspired by any of this content, please be sure, if you haven't already, to scroll down, click that 5-star rating, and leave your review. And you never know, you may be the next review we talk about on this show. But let's get into the reason you click that button today. Oh man, we got one for you. In this episode, we bring you Jason Feifer. He's the editor-in-chief of Entreprenuer magazine. Ladies and gentlemen, that's correct. He is the editor-in-chief of Entreprenuer magazine, one of the most popular worldwide publications that is out there right now. And it's to get to that type of level and to get to that type of position, oh man, you gotta put in the work. And on this particular episode, we sit down with Jason and we talk all things about how it's so important for you to just start moving. And if you don't move, if you're listening to this right now, you got these goals, these aspirations, these dreams. If you don't go out here and get it, it's just not going to happen. And you got to be persistent while doing it. So ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing else to say. Episode 52 with Jason Feifer. Welcome back to School's Over Now with the podcast, and I'm here with my guy, Jason Feifer. He is the editor-in-chief of Entreprenuer magazine and the host of two of my favorite podcasts, Problem Solvers, which is about helping entrepreneurs just like us solve unexpected problems in their business, and the Pessimist Archive. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jason to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Man, this is cool, man, to kind of get you, sitting down and sit down with us today and kind of talk about, your story. So I want to just jump back to the beginning for you. Who was that kid? How was the kid Jason growing up?
Oh, how's that kid Jason growing up? That kid was good. That kid was, it's funny. I have a 4-year-old now, and everything that my parents told me about me as a little kid, I see in my 4-year-old. Wow. So that kid was very, very energetic and very distracted, and not at all interested in following what other people were doing or any instructions at all. When the kids were all gathered together for some group project is when I and now my son were like off in some other part of the room doing his own thing. And that was me. I had a lot of weird hobbies and interests. I became a ham radio operator and drawing comics, and I got into writing really young. And I think I was predisposed to finding my own path.
Wow, man. So now, like, you grow up and now your kid is like the second version of you. I can only imagine what that feels like. So as you're going through creating, this path, was there certain things that were just drawing your interest? Was it the writing? Like, where was it? Like, what grade level that really caught you?
Yeah, I was writing at a very young age, but I was also doing a lot of other kind of creative arts, so to speak. I was like drawing comics and stuff. It wasn't really until high school when I zeroed in on writing as a thing that I felt I was good at. And what was really compelling to me early on was that I started writing for a local music magazine. I grew up in South Florida, and writing for that local music magazine got me access to shows, to CDs when that mattered, interviewing some of my my favorite artists. And that was really exciting. And it made me realize that if I got good at this skill set, all sorts of doors would open for me. And at first I thought that it would be writing. It would be music. And I revised that many times over. I mean, I have constantly changed what it is that I do with writing and the reason why I'm excited about writing and the kinds of stuff that I write and the kind of writer that I am. But once I was able to at least pick that direction, then I could hone within that space.
Man, that's so real. And a lot of times people are looking for that direction. They're looking for, those clues. What were those aha moments? You know what? It's not the music. It's going to be the writing for you.
Well, so I always tell people that I think you should find the intersection of the thing that you're good at and the thing that you're excited about. And that has changed for me, right? Because I found a thing that I was good at and a thing that I was excited about. And then the thing that I was excited about changed. And so I took the thing that I was good at and I applied it to something else. I used to be really excited about music, and then I just kind of lost interest in it because I don't know. I was just interviewing these musicians, and it just wasn't that exciting for me. Then I got into politics, and then I lost interest in that, and then I got into feature writing, and I just kept changing. But you'll never ever figure out what it is that you want to do unless you're doing some version of it, and you'll find that it's like, I don't know, it's like digging for treasure, right? Like you're gonna get a lot of dirt. And you're going to throw that dirt away, but you're going to find some small thing that really matters. And then it doesn't matter about the dirt doesn't matter. Like you had to go through the dirt to get the little thing. And so that's what I did. That's what I did. I just kept doing, and I just kept writing, and I saw where that would take me. And it took me from the local music magazine to the college magazine, to the local newspaper that I got my first job at, to freelancing, to another newspaper, to a series of magazines. And I've just constantly put myself up against a new environment and a new challenge, and then seen what part of it I enjoyed.
Man, that's real. I mean, because what I like so much about what you just said is it's kind of like going through that dirt and identifying, hey, what are the skills, right? And then as you identify what those skills are, how can you formulate those skills to make impact? And I'm pretty sure you feel a high reward. So like, what's like the biggest impact that you've received from doing the work that that you're doing today?
It's hard to piece it apart because my entire life is based on my ability to have done this. I mean, every part of it. I mean, my peer group, my career, the amount of money that I make, the personal satisfaction of what I mean. There were like when I was in high school, I remember thinking that the thing that would be the most satisfying in the world was to be interviewed. right? To like do what I'm doing right now, right? To be interviewed, because that means like if you're being interviewed, like something has happened, right? Like it means that you are in a you're in a position in which people want to know what your thoughts are, and that your words matter, your thoughts matter. You've done something that other people want to know about. I just thought that I focused on that. If I could be in a situation where people would want to interview me, then I've done something. And that is what happens. That's what happened. I got it. I didn't know how I was going to get there. Right. I mean, in high school, I was super into music. I had played bass guitar. I thought maybe I'll be in a band and people will interview me for that. Like, that's not what happened. But, and frankly, let's be clear. I'm 38 years old and I got this job as editor in chief of Entreprenuer magazine at 36. So, I wasn't being interviewed a lot before this. I had done a couple things. I'd created some viral stuff and people interviewed me for that. So every once in a while, someone would interview. But it wasn't really that I reached a consistent place in my career where that kind of thing was happening until I was 36 years old. So what happened between being 18 and thinking this and 36? What happened was a lot of experimentation and a lot of refining of skill set and a lot of putting myself into different situations to figure out what it is that I'm genuinely good at, that I'm also really excited about. Where is my voice? What do I have to say? All that stuff took a lot of time. And yet I don't regret any of that time because the collection of it is what got me to today.
Man, and I think a lot of times people, they look at Jason, at the age you're at now, and they think, oh man, this is a highlight reel, right? And I think they have to go beyond a highlight reel. What I like about what you just said is that gap is that you put in the work to get there. Do you feel like a lot of people that's coming out now, entrepreneurs that want to get to where you are today, do you think they forget about the fact that you have to go and do the work?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that like the entrepreneurs today are any different from entrepreneurs of the past or anybody else pursuing something in the past. Like it is, I think that nobody is unaware that you have to go do the work. I think that what people forget is the amount of work that went into whatever it is that you're seeing from somebody else. Because I think we're predisposed to assume that if somebody has achieved something, if we're looking at somebody who has something that we don't, that they had some kind of advantage. And maybe they did, right? Maybe so people have all sorts of advantages, right? For example, Shaquille O'Neal had a significant advantage over me in becoming an NBA player. Significant advantage, way bigger than I am, right? like there's no way that if my goal was to be an NBA player, there's no way that I have the advantages that Shaquille O'Neal did, right? But let's not forget, he was a big dude. And so that was one advantage, but he still had to work really, really hard to take advantage of his advantage. And so you forget that. Like, yeah, everybody's got some random advantage, but that doesn't just put them in the place of greatness. Like, they had to work hard. They had to fail a lot. They had to struggle and figure it out and eventually get to a place where they could succeed consistently. Because that's another thing, right? Like, think about Shaquille O'Neal. Like, he is an almost singular force in the way that he has had a successful long-term career. There have been a lot of people with his same early advantages, same, physical skill set, same size, who wasn't as focused, wasn't as able to take an advantage, and their careers flamed out early. Not Shaquille, right? Like, that guy just put himself through a lot. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it all was, but he did a lot. So don't forget that the people that you're seeing, what you're seeing of them is the result of a tremendous amount of failure and experimentation and pathfinding. And yeah, they had some advantage, but you have some advantage too. And you got to figure out what that is and how to take advantage of your advantage.
Hey guys, so let me take a guess. You're enjoying the show. And if that's right, please make sure that you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast right now and tag me at Shawn R. Anthony _. I promise you this is going to help in amazing ways. And while you're at it, hit the 5-star rating and subscribe. With that being said, guys, let's get back to the show. Man, that's real. And so we talk about struggle here, right? We talk about struggle. We talk about failure. Was there a moment in your career where you hit like a brick wall and you say, okay, now what? What am I going to do? Is there a moment that you can just think of at this time that brings up that for you?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I've had a lot of them. The one that I always think of when I'm asked something like this is my very first job. So I get out of college. I have all sorts of ambitions. I'm thinking, I want to work. I didn't know what I wanted to do. What I said was, I want to work at the biggest possible publication, writing for the largest number of people. Like that, I didn't know what that was. I just wanted scale. That scale felt like value and importance to me. But that's not what I had access to. I didn't know anybody. And so, I graduated from like a random college in the middle of Massachusetts. So I got this job at a tiny newspaper, 6,000 circulation daily newspaper. And it was just brutal. Like it was just brutally, it was an ego bruiser. And after a year, I was totally failing there. I mean, I was writing stories and fine, whatever, but I wasn't excited about it. I didn't feel like I was progressing. My boss totally hated me because it was very clear that I didn't want to be there. And he he kind of gave me like an ultimatum. He was like, you're not writing, you're like not doing the job. And so shape up in 2 weeks or like you're out of here. And so I quit. I just quit. And I was like, I don't know really what to do here. Like I know that I'm good at something and I know that I have this like talent that I can't figure out how to focus, and I don't know with my direction. And so I don't know what to do. So I just decided to start freelancing at home, just like reaching out cold to editors and just coming up with story ideas and trying to prove myself to the largest publications I could. And that took 9 months of mostly being ignored, occasionally being rejected. But eventually I got a few hits. I got some people to take me seriously. And I discovered that another advantage that I have over people, even though I was young, inexperienced, didn't have a lot to show for myself, a thing that I had was hustle. And like I just had a persistence that I think others didn't. And so I was willing to just continue to send emails into the dark over and over and over and over again. And once I saw a little bit of sunshine, once somebody was willing to take me seriously for a minute, I would prove to them that I had everything they needed. And I've heard that over and over again throughout my career. People tell me now, even today, that I'm just one of the most persistent people that they've ever met. And that really matters. Just persistence really mattered. And so doing that for 9 months finally got me some of the clips that I was looking for, some of the validation that I was looking for. And I was able to take that stuff and build the next step, which was at a somewhat larger newspaper. And then I just repeated that process over and over again until I got where I am.
Wow, man. There's something that you mentioned right there that I know a lot of students and a lot of former students, they listen to this podcast by the thousands. And there's a word you use that a lot of guests have not used, and that is persistence. Because whatever it is that you're doing, whatever goal that you're trying to reach, I think it's spot on that you have to be so relentless at it, even if you come off as crazy, but you know your goals and your dreams, your ideas are what they are and they're what you believe, but you value them enough to keep trying. I think it's so important, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And you don't need to know where you're going to be persistent. You don't need to know where you're going. You just need to go. Because you'll learn along the way, and you won't learn if you're not moving. So to me, I've always thought it's important to have a goal, but it's equally important to be okay not achieving that goal. Because the point of the goal is not to get to the goal. The point of the goal is to give you a direction to move. Just like to give you a direction to move. So because what you need is momentum. What you need to do is feel a sense of momentum, that something you're doing has a purpose, that there's like a roadmap in front of you, and you will find other things along the way that will excite you more. And, if you're like 18 and you pick a goal and then you spend the next 30 years just trying to reach that goal, well, I mean, good on you if that's what you want to do and it works out. But I'm telling you that if you're that single-minded, you're going to miss out on all these other amazing things that you discover along the way. And those things might actually be more satisfying and more valuable to you than whatever your original ideal was. There is no way that if you asked me to write down every possible version of success that I could think of when I was 18, that I would have written editor-in-chief of Entreprenuer magazine. There's no way I would have written that. It wouldn't have ever occurred to me. I hadn't even heard of the magazine. So if I had focused on whatever the hell my goal was at 18, I would have missed out on what I'm doing right now. So instead, the goal should just be something that gets you moving. And then it's okay to revise it along the way. Just start moving.
Man, I mean, you have to move, because if you didn't move, if you stood still, all these dreams you have would just be thoughts. They would never, they would never formulate. They would never touch paper. They would never touch the hands of people. And I think that that's so powerful, man. And I can only imagine with the many articles that you've written and on the many people that you featured, a lot of those articles didn't come easy.
No, none of it came easy. I mean, listen, once you start doing something for a while, it becomes easier. I can, our cover right now, June, we're talking, what are we talking? End of May here. So our June 2019 cover is on Michelle Pfeiffer. And, so first of all, how cool is it that I'm in a situation where like Michelle Pfeiffer's people reach out and they're like, hey, Michelle Pfeiffer would like to come meet with you. And I was like, yeah. But I wrote that piece. That piece, it's like a 3,500 word story, bunch of interviews, two something hours with Michelle. And, anyway, all that's to say that 10 years ago, that story would have taken me like 2 weeks to write, now it took me, it just took me a few hours. Like it just took me like a couple afternoons, of just rocking through it because I know how to do it now. I've done it enough that I understand the mechanics of it. I understand what it is that I need to do. I understand what my reader is looking for, and I'm able to piece that thing together really quickly. And there's a real satisfaction in that, I got to say, in learning a craft well enough that you are able to, or that it doesn't feel like a struggle, that it feels like you've got the tools and you can apply those tools. And what's really, really exciting is that once you do that, once you become really good at something, you start to wonder what's next. What else can I do? Well, I mean, that's why, you had introduced me with, by shouting out my podcast, which I appreciate. Like, I got into podcasting because I was looking for a new challenge and I felt like there was a new skill set that I needed. I know how to write a magazine story. I've done it enough that I know how to do it. I'm really, really fast at it now. And that's great. I'm happy about that. But it also got me excited about what else I can do. Right. I mean, it's like, when you, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some stupid example. Like, I don't know, when you pick something up and it's heavy and you're like, I'm going to move this. I don't know. I guess if you're into weightlifting or something, like, you lift it until it doesn't feel nearly as heavy. And you're like, all right, now it's time for more weight. Now let's put more weight on it. And we're going to lift this until it doesn't feel as heavy anymore. And we're going to put some more weight on it. And that's what we're going to keep doing. And that's how I feel like you build a great career. You become good at something and then you add more.
Gems. I mean, that analogy is crazy. I mean, because at the end of the day, you're always looking for that next goal. You're always looking for, okay, I've done this. Maybe I could try this. Maybe I could try that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And somebody right now is listening to this and they're a writer who may want to give up. They're a college student who, how can I even get to the platforms Jason's on? Like, what would you say to that person that was just trying to get just media coverage? Like, what would be your, hey, this is how you should think about your pitches a little bit differently.
Oh, like how should they write? How should they write for the media? Yeah. So, well, okay, there's a whole bunch of things to say there. So one, you'd said that, a college student is sitting there like ready to give up. So listen, I'm gonna like complicate my message about persistence here, because I really do believe in persistence, but I also believe in finding the thing that you're genuinely good at. Like I tried fiction writing for a long time and screenwriting, and I don't know what would have happened if I was persistent with those things. If I was like, if I, you know, I wrote like a movie in high school, and it wasn't very good. And I was really into it. I took a bunch of film classes in college, and I was like, I think I want to be a screenwriter. I don't know. I don't think I was very good at it. I don't think I was good at it. So I'm glad I gave up on that. The thing I didn't give up on, though, was writing, right? Like, I looked more core. I was like, I'm not a screenwriter, I'm a writer. And that's important. It's important to identify what the core thing is. Like, what's deeper down than whatever surface level thing you're interested in? What's deeper down? And so, you know, you might be writing and you might not be getting any traction, but you might feel like you're a good writer. And maybe the answer is that you're actually a really good, different kind of writer. And you should explore what that is. You should put yourself in different circumstances. Maybe you're not a great, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're not a great novel writer. Maybe your novel sucks. Sorry, your novel sucks. But maybe you're actually a really good nonfiction writer, and you should go out and write a nonfiction book instead. Like, go figure it out. Don't just anchor yourself to one thing. So anyway, after that, I would say, like, what you need to know. Here's the number one rookie mistake, and actually, not even rookie mistake, because people who've been at this for a long time make the same mistake. But here's a mistake I see all the time in my inbox when people are trying to write for me. They don't think about what I'm looking for. They don't think about what I need. They think about what they need. And so here's a great example. There's like a world of people who want to be comedy, like comedy columnists. You know, like they all read some like humor column somewhere and they thought, oh, I can do that. And they send me their columns and they're like, would you like this for Entrepreneur Magazine? And I've gotten that at every magazine I've ever been at. When I was at Men's Health, people were sending me humor columns. And it's like, guys, we don't publish humor columns. We don't. Like, pick up the magazine, look at what we do. You will not see a humor column in there anywhere ever. Not what we do. So just because you want to write a humor column does not mean that we want your humor column. Instead, look at what we want. Because the thing is, your desires do not matter to anybody else. What matters is how you can fulfill their desires. So if you can look at something, if you can look at a product and say, I understand exactly what they're doing, I understand exactly what they're looking for, and I know how to fulfill their needs, and you go to them and you are entirely focused on what they're looking for and how you can fulfill what they are looking for, then they will give you what you're looking for, which is the ability to write for them. Like, that's the number one thing. 99% of the email that I get from prospective writers or from entrepreneurs looking for coverage or from anybody else, 99% of them, and that's probably low. It's probably 99.9% of them do not take into account what I'm looking for at all. They just take into account what they're looking for. And I am not a service provider. I do not provide a service to you. I provide a service to my reader. So understand what it is that I'm looking for and the way that I'm serving my reader. And if you can help me do that, then we can talk.
Now that is probably the most powerful statement I've heard from anyone that kind of described how you should and should not pitch. Because you got to take into account, dude, if you're talking about entrepreneurs, you're talking about success, some categories of things and topics that people want to talk about has nothing to do with it. So thank you so much, because that is going to save a lot of people time right there. I want to wrap this up and I want to ask you the question we ask every single person that's ever been on this show.
Sure.
If you were that college student or that person who dropped out of school, what would you say to that person that just crossed their stage and is asking themselves the question of the podcast, school's over, now what? What advice would you give?
Well, I've said it in bits and pieces throughout, so I'll just tie it together here. I mean, the advice that I would give is that you need to not worry about the end of the path and instead just focus on going down a path. Like, don't worry about where it is that you're going. Just pick a direction and start moving, because you will not be able to control what happens a few steps out. You can't see it. You can't anticipate it. You can't control it. You don't know what direction it's going to be. But I'm telling you that if you don't start moving, you're going nowhere. Like, at the very beginning, we were talking about like digging for treasure, right? So to me, there's no difference between between someone like who you just described, who's standing there and is like, I don't exactly know where I want to be. And so I think that I'll probably just like sit here and not make any decisions until I figure it out. And I'll try to figure it out, think a lot about it. And maybe I'll ask a bunch of questions. I'll listen to some podcasts and I'll try to figure it out. And then I'll make a decision. And like that is the exact same as standing on the surface of the earth and being like, there's some treasure down here below, but I don't know exactly where it is. So I'm not going to start digging until I figure out exactly where it is. Until I figure out exactly where it is, I'm not going to take shovel to dirt. And listen, you cannot see through the ground. You do not know where the treasure is. The only way you'll find it is if you dig a lot, and you're going to waste a lot of time. Waste a lot of time digging places where there's no treasure. But the only way you will find the treasure, literally the only way you will find it is if you start digging. So just start digging. Just start moving and you'll discover things along the way. Maybe you won't find treasure. Maybe you won't find treasure. Maybe instead you'll find like an awesome crab and you'll be like, I love crabs. And then and then you become a chef. And then that's awesome, right? And then you discovered something else, something you did not anticipate, but you would have never found it unless you started digging.
Straight fire, man. And 100% agree with you. And someone right now wants to know more about you. Just give us all info of where they can find you.
Yeah. So the most comprehensive thing you could do is just go to jasonfeifer.com, JASONFEIFER.com. Because that's where I got links to my newsletter, which you sign up for, and articles and podcasts and all that stuff. But also, you started out with the podcast, so I'll just give those another shout out. So the two of them, there's one called Problem Solvers. It's a weekly show. Each episode is about entrepreneurs solving unexpected problems in their business, and then the other one is called Pessimist Archive. It's a history show about why people resist new things. So each episode we look at the moment that something new was introduced, something that today we take for total granted: car, bicycle, novels. And we try to understand why people, when they were brand new, why people resisted them and freaked out about them. Next episode is about the elevator. That's what I'm working on right now. So anyway, go check all that stuff out.
So dope. And for those of you that are listening, always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. Yo, what you think? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to know what you learned. So if you wouldn't mind, would you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your phone right now? Upload to your Instagram stories, tag me at Shawn R. Anthony _, and then let me know in that Instagram story what is one thing that you learned. I love hearing from you, my listeners, thought leaders, former or current students all around the world. Let me know, and while you're doing this, go inside the podcast app, subscribe, leave a 5-star review and a 5-star rating. Again, this helps us reach more people. And if you want to be a part of this mission, helping us change the world one person at a time, it makes a massive difference by you leaving a review. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week. And remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.